Mr. Lewis, a dedicated school janitor, begins each day before dawn, embarking on a grueling miles-long journey on foot to the school that he loves. With every step, he carries the weight of loss and financial strain, but his spirit remains unbroken. Mr. Lewis's life has been anything but easy, yet he finds joy in the small moments, like greeting students with a warm smile and ensuring classrooms are clean and welcoming. However, unbeknownst to him, the very students he cares for so deeply have started to notice his struggle. What happens next will warm your heart and remind you of the power of community and kindness. Before we begin this moving story of resilience, generosity, and life-changing compassion, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire. The sun hasn't yet risen over the sleepy town of Millbrook, but its first pale fingers are already reaching across the misty horizon. The streets lie empty and quiet, save for the occasional early morning delivery truck rumbling past dark storefronts. As dawn breaks, the camera pans across weathered buildings and neat suburban homes before settling on a small, paint-peeling house at the edge of town. Inside, an ancient alarm clock ticks steadily beside a narrow bed. Its hands point to 4:30 a.m. when the harsh buzz fills the dimly lit room. A weathered hand reaches out, carefully silencing the alarm with practiced precision. Thomas Lewis, known to everyone simply as Mr. Lewis, sits up slowly, his joints protesting the early movement. The bed springs creak beneath him as he swings his legs over the side, his feet finding their way into worn slippers placed precisely where he left them the night before. "Another day, Max," he murmurs to the elderly golden retriever lifting his head from his bed in the corner. The dog's muzzle has gone completely white, but his tail still thumps against the floor at the sound of his master's voice. "Let's get some breakfast in us, old friend." Mr. Lewis shuffles to the small kitchen, where the linoleum is peeling at the corners and the cabinets hang slightly crooked. Despite its obvious age, everything is meticulously clean. He reaches for the container of oatmeal, the generic brand, on sale at the discount store, and measures out careful portions into 2 bowls. "Here you go, buddy," he says softly, adding a small drizzle of honey to Max's bowl before placing it carefully on the floor. "Easy on those old teeth now." While the oatmeal cooks, Mr. Lewis goes through his morning routine. The bathroom mirror reflects a face lined with years of early mornings and late nights. His hair, more salt and pepper now, is neatly combed. He takes extra care shaving, remembering Claire's gentle teasing about his porcupine chin. The thought brings both a smile and a familiar ache to his chest. Back in the bedroom, he opens his closet to reveal a row of carefully pressed work shirts and pants. Each garment shows signs of wear, some subtle darning at the seams, patches carefully matched in color and pattern. He selects today's outfit with deliberate care. The blue work shirt that Emily had given him 2 Christmases ago, before she left for college. His eyes drift to the photograph on his bedside table. Claire's smile beams back at him, her arms wrapped around a teenage Emily at her high school graduation. The frame is slightly tarnished, but the glass is spotless, cleaned daily with loving attention. "Morning, sweetheart," he whispers, touching the frame gently. "Emily called yesterday. She's doing great in her classes. That scholarship was a blessing, wasn't it? She's going to be somebody, Claire, just like you always said she would." The silence that follows feels heavy, but Mr. Lewis straightens his shoulders and returns to the kitchen. He eats his oatmeal standing up, gazing out the small window at the gradually lightening sky. The bowl gets rinsed immediately after. Dishes are never left in the sink in the Lewis household. "Time for lunch packing, Max," he announces, pulling out a paper bag from the cabinet. The sandwich assembly is precise. 2 slices of whole wheat bread, bought day old to save money, a thin spread of margarine, 2 slices of ham, on sale this week, and a single slice of American cheese. An apple, slightly bruised but still good, completes the meal. Mr. Lewis checks his watch, 5:15 a.m. Time to get moving. He slips on his work boots, the soles worn thin and starting to separate at the edges. A little shoe glue had bought them a few more months of life, but he knows they're on their last legs. Just like his car, sitting dead in the driveway, A repair bill for $2,300 might as well be $2 million on his salary. Be good, Max, he says, giving the old dog a gentle pat. I'll be back tonight. The morning air hits him with a sharp chill as he steps outside, pulling his thin jacket closer around his shoulders. The walk to Millbrook High School is exactly 4.2 miles. He'd measured it on Google Maps when his car first broke down 3 months ago. Back then, he'd thought it would be temporary. Now, the route is as familiar as the lines on his palm. The first mile isn't so bad. The sky continues to brighten as he walks, and the morning mist creates beautiful patterns in the early light. He passes Mrs. Henderson's house, where she's already up tending to her roses. "Morning, Thomas," she calls out. "Still no luck with the car?" "Working on it, Mrs. Henderson," he replies with a wave, not breaking his stride. He can't afford to stop if he wants to make it to school on time. By mile 2, his knee begins its familiar protest. The doctor had recommended surgery last year, but the cost was out of the question. Instead, Mr. Lewis had memorized the location of every bench and low wall along his route. Places to pause when the pain becomes too intense. He passes the bus stop where a handful of early morning workers wait. The Route 17 bus would take him within a mile of the school, but the $4.50 fare each way would add up to nearly $200 a month. Money he needs for Emily's textbooks and Max's medication. "Morning, Mr. Lewis," calls out Jimmy, the newspaper delivery boy, pedaling past on his bike. "Want a ride?" Mr. Lewis chuckles, the sound slightly wheezy from exertion. "Thanks, Jimmy, but I think I'd break that bike of yours in half." The third mile brings him to the industrial district, where the sidewalk gives way to uneven gravel alongside the road. Cars whiz past, their headlights still on in the dawn light. One driver, recognizing him, honks and waves. It's Mr. Patterson, who used to give him rides before moving to the other side of town for his new job. By mile 4, sweat has soaked through his shirt despite the morning chill. His knee throbs with each step, and his breathing comes in controlled, measured pants. He pauses at the corner of Maple and Fifth, leaning against a telephone pole to catch his breath. A few cars slow down, drivers perhaps wondering if they should offer help, but he waves them on with a smile. He's got his dignity, after all. The school finally comes into view. Mr. Lewis straightens his shirt and wipes his brow before approaching the building. No one needs to see how hard the walk is for him. He has a job to do, and he's going to do it right. The key ring at his hip jingles as he unlocks the main entrance. The empty halls echo with his footsteps as he makes his way to the janitor's office. Really just a converted storage closet, but he's made it his own. A few children's drawings decorate the walls, thank you notes from students he's helped over the years. He changes into his work boots, stored overnight to keep them clean, and begins his morning routine. The hallways need to be mopped before students arrive, the bathrooms cleaned and restocked, the classrooms dusted and ready for another day of learning. As he works, memories of Claire teaching in room 204 flow back to him. She'd loved this school, loved teaching English to generations of Millbrook teenagers. After she passed, working here had been both a comfort and a wound. But the students, they made it worthwhile. The first teachers begin arriving. "Morning, Tom," calls Ms. Rodriguez, the Spanish teacher. "Did you get that air freshener I asked about for room 312? "Already installed, Ms. Rodriguez," he replies with a smile. "Let me know if it's not strong enough to combat those chemistry experiments next door." The first students start trickling in. Mr. Lewis positions himself near the main entrance, ready with a smile and a greeting for each one. "Morning, Jason. Those new basketball shoes treating you right? Hey there, Maria. Did your sister have her baby yet? Sarah, congratulations on that science fair win." A crash, and the sound of books scattering across the floor draws his attention. I got it," he calls out, already moving toward the sound. Tommy Chun, a freshman still growing into his long limbs, stands amid a shower of papers and textbooks, his broken backpack strap dangling uselessly. "Don't worry about it, Tommy," Mr. Lewis says, already gathering books. I think I have some heavy-duty thread in my office that'll fix that strap right up. Want to stop by after first period?" "Really? Thanks, Mr. Lewis." Tommy's relief is evident as they collect the last of his papers. The morning continues in its familiar rhythm. Mr. Lewis moves through the halls like a guardian angel in work boots, appearing whenever and wherever he's needed. When little Amy Phillips realizes she's forgotten her lunch money, he quietly slips her a $5 bill. "You can pay me back tomorrow," he says with a wink, knowing she probably won't remember, and that's just fine with him. Later, he's the first to respond when Justin Marshall's locker jams for the third time this week. "These old lockers can be tricky," he says, demonstrating the specific way to lift and turn the handle. "But they've got character, just like the rest of us old-timers around here." During lunch period, he's there with his mop when Jessica spills her chocolate milk, quickly cleaning it up before anyone can make fun of her. "Did I ever tell you about the time I dropped an entire bucket of paint in the gymnasium?" he asks as she fights back tears. Now that was a mess worth crying about. Between tasks, when he thinks no one is watching, Mr. Lewis sometimes pauses to rub his knee or catch his breath. The morning's walk takes its toll throughout the day, but he never lets it show in his work or his smile. There are floors to be cleaned, lights to be changed, and children who need a kind word or a helping hand. As he works, he occasionally glances at the small photo he keeps in his pocket. Claire and Emily at the beach, their last vacation together before the cancer took Claire. The edges are worn smooth from years of handling, but their smiles remain as bright as ever. "You'd be proud of her, Claire," he whispers during a quiet moment. "Our girl's doing so well at college. Worth every blister, every aching step." He touches the photo gently before tucking it away. There's work to be done, and Thomas Lewis has never been one to let pain get in the way of duty. The morning passes into afternoon, and Mr. Lewis continues his rounds, a quiet guardian of these hallowed halls. To the casual observer, he's just the school janitor, but to those who know him, he's so much more: a friend, a helper, a listener, a fixed point in an ever-changing world. His worn boots may carry him slowly through his day, but his spirit remains undiminished, his kindness unflagging, even as the long walk home awaits him once again. The autumn sun streamed through the windows of Millbrook High's journalism room, where Sarah Chin sat at her usual spot, absently tapping her pencil against her notebook. As editor-in-chief of the Millbrook Monitor, she should have been focused on the upcoming edition's layout, but something else occupied her thoughts. "Earth to Sarah," teased her best friend Madison, waving a hand in front of her face. "You've been staring at that wall for 10 minutes straight." Sarah blinked, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses. "Sorry, did you notice something different about Mr. Lewis this morning?" "The janitor?" Madison pulled up a chair. "What do you mean?" "I saw him sweeping the science wing earlier, and he was limping, like really limping." Sarah's brow furrowed as she recalled the scene. "And when he thought no one was looking, he leaned against the wall like he was in pain." Before Madison could respond, their friend Josh dropped his backpack on the table. "Who's in pain?" "Mr. Lewis," Madison explained. "Sarah's worried about him." "Oh yeah, I saw him this morning too," Josh said, pulling out his lunch. "He was moving pretty slow, but then again, he's always here super early. Maybe he was just tired." Sarah shook her head. "No, this was different. I've been watching him all week. Something's not right." "You've been watching the janitor all week?" Josh raised an eyebrow. "That's not creepy at all. It's called being observant," Sarah shot back, her journalistic instincts kicking in. "And speaking of observations, have you guys ever wondered how he gets to school? I've never seen him drive in." Madison's eyes widened. "Now that you mention it, I saw him walking along Route 7 last week when Mom and I were driving to the dentist. We were going to offer him a ride, but Mom was running late." "Route 7? Sarah pulled up her phone's map app. "But that's miles from the school." Their conversation was interrupted by Amy Phillips, a freshman who'd overheard them from the next table. "Are you guys talking about Mr. Lewis?" She moved closer, lowering her voice. "He helped me out last week when I forgot my lunch money. Wouldn't let me pay him back either." "That sounds like him," said Carlos Rodriguez, joining the growing group. "Last semester, when I bombed that chemistry test and was crying in the hallway, he sat with me for like 20 minutes. Told me about how his daughter struggled with science too, but she ended up getting a scholarship to college. Made me feel like maybe I wasn't such a failure after all." More students began chiming in, drawn by the conversation. Tommy Chan mentioned how Mr. Lewis fixed his backpack strap with heavy-duty thread he kept in his office. Jessica Marshall recalled how he'd stayed late to help paint sets for the drama club's production of Our Town, even though he wasn't getting paid extra. And remembered during that huge snowstorm last winter, added Madison. He shoveled paths from every entrance before anyone else arrived, even though he could barely walk straight in that wind. Sarah listened intently, her reporter's notebook now filled with hastily scribbled notes. A pattern was emerging, countless small kindnesses that added up to something extraordinary. But there was more to the story. She could feel it. "I'm staying late after school today," she announced suddenly. "I want to see something." "Want company?" Madison offered. Sarah shook her head. "No, I need to do this alone. But keep your phone on. I might need backup." The rest of the day passed slowly. Sarah found herself watching Mr. Lewis whenever their paths crossed, noting how he always smiled despite the obvious pain in his steps. During 7th period, she saw him helping a student clean up a spilled energy drink, and the way he struggled to stand afterward made her heart ache. When the final bell rang, Sarah told her parents she was staying late to work on the paper. She positioned herself in the journalism room, which offered a clear view of the main entrance. As the halls emptied and the afternoon light began to fade, she waited. At 5:45 p.m., she saw Mr. Lewis emerge from his office, changed back into his street clothes. She waited until he was halfway down the front walk before grabbing her backpack and following at a discreet distance. What she witnessed over the hours would change her life forever. Mr. Lewis's journey home took him past empty storefronts and through industrial areas where loose gravel crunched under his feet. Sarah stayed far enough behind to remain unnoticed, but close enough to see how he stopped every few blocks, leaning against whatever support he could find: telephone poles, fence posts, low walls. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself, checking her phone's GPS. They'd already walked over 2 miles, and Mr. Lewis showed no signs of turning toward any residential areas. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the empty sidewalks. At one point, a city bus passed them. Sarah watched Mr. Lewis reach into his pocket, pull out some change, count it, and slowly put it back. Her throat tightened as she realized what that meant. By mile 3, she had to fight the urge to run up and offer help. Mr. Lewis's limp had grown more pronounced, and his stops became more frequent. Yet each time someone drove past, he straightened up and smiled, as if everything was fine. When they finally reached his small house on the outskirts of town, Sarah stood frozen on the corner, tears streaming down her face. Her phone showed they'd walked 4.2 miles. And he did this twice a day? Every day? She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and called Madison. "Mads, are you sitting down? Because you're not going to believe what I just saw." 20 minutes later, Sarah burst into Madison's bedroom, calling a taxi to reach there. He walks 8.5 miles every day. 8.5 miles. In worn-out shoes with a bad knee, carrying his lunch and his work clothes and we never noticed. How do we never notice? Madison sat on her bed, stunned. But why? Doesn't he have a car? I asked Mr. Patterson, the security guard. He says Mr. Lewis's car broke down months ago, and he can't afford to fix it. The buses don't run to his neighborhood, and ride-sharing would cost too much on a janitor's salary. Sarah paced the room, her words tumbling out faster and faster. And get this, he sends most of his money to his daughter in college. She's there on scholarship, but textbooks and living expenses add up, and he wants to make sure she has everything she needs. "Oh my God," Madison whispered. "We have to do something." "Already on it." Sarah pulled out her laptop. "I started a group chat with everyone from lunch today. We need to meet tomorrow morning before school. This is bigger than just us. We need everyone involved." The next morning, 20 students crowded into the journalism room at 7:15 a.m. Sarah stood at the front, her exhaustion evident, but her eyes bright with determination. "Okay, everyone's here. Thanks for coming so early." She took a deep breath. "What I'm about to tell you might be hard to hear, but we need to listen. And then we need to act." For the next 15 minutes, Sarah described everything she'd witnessed. The room grew quieter and quieter as she spoke, until you could hear a pin drop. When she finished, there was a long moment of silence. Finally, Carlos spoke up. "My dad's a mechanic. Maybe he could look at Mr. Lewis's car." "That's a start," Sarah nodded. "But from what I've heard, the repairs would cost thousands. And even if we fixed it, there's gas, insurance, maintenance." "What about a fundraiser?" suggested Amy. "We could do a car wash or something." Jessica shook her head. "A car wash might raise a few $100s, but we need way more than that. We need something bigger." "Social media," Josh said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "No, seriously. Remember that video about the guy who gave his mom a car? It went viral, raised like $50,000 in 3 days." "That could actually work," Madison said slowly. "We all have stories about Mr. Lewis. If we share them, maybe other people will too. And not just current students," Sarah added, getting excited. "Alumni, parents, teachers, everyone who's ever been helped by Mr. Lewis. We could start a hashtag, maybe hashtag Miles for Mr. Lewis, or something like that." The room buzzed with energy as ideas flew back and forth. Amy offered to make TikTok videos. Carlos said his cousin worked at the local news station. Madison's mom was friends with several parent-teacher organization leaders. But then Tommy voiced what everyone was secretly worried about. "What if we fail? What if we can't raise enough money? Or what if people don't take us seriously because we're just kids?" The room fell silent again. Sarah looked around at her friends' uncertain faces and stood up straighter. "Then we fail trying," she said firmly. "But we have to try. Because right now, Mr. Lewis is probably already halfway through his morning walk, probably in pain, probably worried about paying for his daughter's textbooks or his dog's medication or fixing his car. And he's never complained, never asked for help, never stopped being kind to every single person in this school." She looked each person in the eye as she continued. "We've all been helped by Mr. Lewis at some point. Now it's our turn to help him. Maybe we'll fail. Maybe people won't take us seriously. But maybe, just maybe, we can make a difference in the life of someone who's made a difference in all of ours." The room erupted in determined chatter. Josh started creating social media accounts. Madison began drafting emails to parent groups. Amy and her friends huddled around a phone, planning their first video. Sarah watched it all with a mixture of hope and anxiety. She pulled out her phone and opened Instagram, starting a new post. After a moment's thought, she wrote, "Every morning, a hero walks 4.2 miles to Millbrook High School. Every afternoon, he walks 4.2 miles home. He does this in summer heat and winter snow. He does this with a bad knee and worn-out shoes. He does this without complaint, without asking for help, without letting it stop him from being the kindest person many of us have ever met. His name is Mr. Lewis, and this is his story. Hashtag Miles for Mr. Lewis." She attached a photo she'd taken earlier that week. Mr. Lewis helping a freshman with his locker, both of them laughing at some shared joke. Her finger hovered over the post button for a moment before pressing it decisively. Within hours, the post had been shared hundreds of times. Former students began commenting with their own Mr. Lewis stories. Teachers shared it with their networks. Local community groups picked it up and spread it further. By lunchtime, Sarah's phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. The local news station had called, asking for an interview. The principal had asked to meet with her after school. Even some local businesses had reached out, offering to help. But what touched her most was watching her fellow students in action. Between classes, she saw them stopping to really look at Mr. Lewis, to thank him, to offer help he gently declined. She saw them noticing things they'd overlooked before. How he limped more in the afternoons, how he saved half his lunch for dinner, how he never stopped smiling despite it all. After school, Sarah sat in the journalism room, updating the fundraising page they created. The initial goal had been modest, $5,000 for car repairs. But as she read through the growing list of comments and contributions, she began to dream bigger. Maybe, she whispered to herself, maybe we can do more than just fix his car. Maybe we can make sure he never has to make that walk again. She looked out the window, where the afternoon sun painted the school grounds in warm, golden light. Somewhere out there, Mr. Lewis was beginning his long walk home, unaware that his life was about to change, unaware that his years of quiet kindness had planted seeds that were finally beginning to bloom. Sarah turned back to her computer and began to write, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she crafted the story that would appear in next week's Millbrook Monitor. The headline was already clear in her mind. The Man Who Walked Miles. How One Person's Kindness Inspired a Community. The story was far from over, but something extraordinary had begun. In classrooms and living rooms across town, people were reading about Mr. Lewis and remembering their own encounters with him. Parents were talking to their children about the importance of noticing other struggles. Teachers were sharing stories of his dedication with their colleagues. A movement was building, one small act of kindness at a time. And somewhere between those miles he walked every day, between the pain in his knee and the weight of his responsibilities, Mr. Lewis had taught them all something invaluable, that sometimes the biggest hearts come in the most unassuming packages, and that true kindness never goes unnoticed forever. The Millbrook High School gymnasium buzzed with energy on a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after Sarah's discovery. Long tables lined the walls, covered with poster boards, markers, and stacks of neon paper. In the center, students gathered in groups, their voices echoing off the high ceiling as they worked. "No, the letters need to be bigger," Madison directed, watching as Josh struggled with a particularly large banner. "We want people driving by to be able to read it from the street." "I'm trying." Josh balanced precariously on a ladder, paint dripping onto his old t-shirt. "But support Mr. Lewis, our hero," is a lot of words to fit on one banner. Sarah moved between the groups, her clipboard in hand, and her phone constantly buzzing with notifications. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of planning and organizing, and today marked the launch of their biggest push yet. "Amy, how's the bake sale sign-up looking?" Sarah called out to the freshman, who sat cross-legged on the floor with her laptop. "We've got 25 families committed," Amy responded excitedly. "Mrs. Rodriguez is making her famous churros. And guess what? The owner of Sweet Dreams Bakery downtown offered to donate 3 dozen cupcakes." "Perfect." Sarah made a note on her clipboard. "Carlos, any update on the mile run challenge?" Carlos jogged over, holding up his phone. "The app is ready to go. People can track their miles and donate per mile walked. We've already got 50 people signed up, and the event doesn't start until Monday." Sarah smiled, feeling a flutter of hope in her chest. The Mile Run Challenge had been Madison's idea. Participants would walk or run to raise money, with each mile symbolizing Mr. Lewis's daily journey. "Together, we walk in his shoes" was the tagline Josh had come up with, and it had resonated immediately with everyone. "Sarah," Tommy called from across the gym. "Channel 7 News just confirmed. They're doing a segment on our car wash next weekend." The energy in the room seemed to surge with each small victory. Sarah watched as her classmates threw themselves into the work, their determination matching her own. Even the youngest students had found ways to help. A group of 7th graders sat in a corner, making friendship bracelets to sell at lunch. Later that night, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by papers and empty coffee mugs. Her laptop screen glowed with dozens of open tabs. The fundraising page, social media accounts, email chains, and spreadsheets tracking every dollar raised. "Honey," her mother called softly from the doorway. "It's almost midnight." "Just 5 more minutes, Mom," Sarah replied, not looking up from her screen. "I need to update the donation page with today's stories." Her mother walked over, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Let me see what you're writing." Sarah scrolled through the latest updates. Today, Mrs. Henderson, class of 1982, shared how Mr. Lewis helped her son through a difficult time in 2005. "My Bobby was being bullied, and Mr. Lewis noticed. He gave Bobby a job helping him after school, which not only kept him safe but taught him the value of hard work. Bobby's now a teacher himself, inspired by Mr. Lewis's kindness." Maria Delgado, current senior, remembers, "When my little sister was scared on her first day of school, Mr. Lewis made her a special hall monitor badge out of cardboard and glitter. She wore it proudly all year. That's just who he is, always thinking of ways to make others feel special." "Look at these donations coming in," Sarah pointed to the screen. $5 from a student's allowance, $20 from a retired teacher, $100 from a local business. They're not huge amounts, but they're adding up. Her mother squeezed her shoulder. You're doing something remarkable, sweetie. But you need to rest too. I know, Mom. It's just... Sarah's voice caught slightly. Every morning, I still see him making that walk. And until we fix this, I can't really rest. The next few days saw an explosion of activity throughout Millbrook. The Mile Run Challenge kicked off with a bang. Students, teachers, and community members logged their miles, many sharing selfies with signs reading, "Walking for Mr. Lewis," or "For .2 miles and counting." The bake sale tables at lunch were swamped with customers, many paying far more than the asking price for cookies and brownies. "Keep the change" became a common phrase, with everyone understanding where the extra dollars would go. Local businesses began joining the effort. The hardware store donated supplies for the car wash. The print shop offered free posters. Restaurants pledged percentages of their daily sales. Each contribution, large or small, added to the growing momentum. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. On Wednesday morning, Sarah was called to Principal Davidson's office. "Miss Chun," the principal began, her expression serious. "While I appreciate the spirit of what you and your fellow students are doing, I have some concerns." Sarah sat up straighter in her chair. "What kind of concerns, Mrs. Davidson?" "For one, these events are taking up a lot of school resources and time. The gym has been essentially converted into campaign headquarters. Teachers report students working on posters during class time. And there's the matter of the school's reputation to consider. How does it look that our janitor can't afford basic transportation?" Sarah felt her face flush with anger, but she kept her voice steady. "Mrs. Davidson, may I show you something?" She pulled out her phone and opened the fundraising page's comment section. "Mr. Lewis helped me clean up when I got sick in the hallway. He gave me his own jacket to wear home and never asked for it back." Current student: "When my mom died, Mr. Lewis left flowers on her old desk in the teacher's lounge every Monday for a year. He didn't know I knew." Former teacher: "My car broke down in the school parking lot during a snowstorm. Mr. Lewis stayed 3 hours after his shift to help me get it started. Wouldn't accept any payment." Parent: "With all due respect," Sarah said quietly, "I think our school's reputation is only being enhanced by showing how much we value everyone in our community, regardless of their position." Principal Davidson was silent for a long moment, reading through the comments. Finally, she looked up, her eyes slightly misty. "You know what? You're right. And I think I know how the administration can help." The next day, an official email went out to all parents, endorsing the fundraising efforts and announcing that the school would match donations up to $5,000. The celebration in the gym that afternoon was electric. "Can you believe it?" Madison squealed, hugging Sarah. "The school is backing us." But despite the growing support, challenges remained. Some students reported their parents questioning why they should help just a janitor. Others worried about drawing attention to Mr. Lewis's financial situation, fearing it might embarrass him. And then there was the matter of the car itself. Carlos's father had finally examined Mr. Lewis's old vehicle and delivered the verdict. The repair costs would be far more than the car was worth. Even with all their fundraising, fixing it didn't make financial sense. "Maybe we should just focus on getting him a used car," Tommy suggested during one planning session. "But then we'd have to worry about it breaking down too," Josh pointed out. "He needs something reliable." "Guys," Sarah interrupted, staring at her laptop screen. "We have a bigger problem. The donations are slowing down." The room fell silent as she showed them the graphs. After the initial surge of support, the daily donation amounts were dropping. They had raised just over $15,000, an impressive sum, but not enough for a reliable new vehicle plus insurance and maintenance costs. "Maybe we should lower our goals?" Amy suggested hesitantly. "No." Sarah's voice was firm. "Mr. Lewis never does anything halfway. Neither should we." That night, Sarah sat alone in her room, scrolling through the fundraising page for the 100th time. The total amount seemed to mock her. $15,427. Still so far from what they needed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Don't give up. Remember why we started this?" Sarah closed her eyes, remembering that first day she followed Mr. Lewis home. The way he stopped every few blocks, leaning against whatever he could find. The quiet dignity with which he carried his burden. The smile that never wavered, no matter how tired he was. Opening her eyes, she began to type a new update for the fundraising page. Dear Millbrook community, when I first discovered Mr. Lewis's daily journey, I was shocked. But what shocked me more was realizing how long we had all taken his kindness for granted. Every day, he walks 8.4 miles round trip to serve our school. He does this with a bad knee, worn-out shoes, and a heart full of determination. But here's what makes Mr. Lewis truly extraordinary. In all these months of walking, in all these years of serving our school, he has never once complained, never once asked for help, never once let his struggles dim his smile or dampen his spirit. We've raised $15,427 so far. That's incredible, and we're grateful for every single donation. But it's not enough. Not for someone who has given so much of himself to our community. Some have asked why we're doing this for just a janitor. To them, I say, Mr. Lewis is not just anything. He is the first smile many of us see each morning. He is the helping hand that never wavers. He is the quiet hero who makes our school a better place every single day. We're not asking for more donations just to buy a car. We're asking because this is our chance to show that kindness matters. That every person in our community matters. That sometimes the most important people are the ones we see every day, but don't really see at all. Please help us reach our goal. Share our story. Make a donation if you can. Join our mile run challenge. Buy a friendship bracelet or a cupcake. Every dollar brings us closer to showing Mr. Lewis that his years of quiet kindness have not gone unnoticed. Because in the end, this isn't just about a car. It's about recognizing the hero who's been walking among us all along. Thank you, Sarah Chung. She hit post and sat back, wiping tears from her eyes. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Madison. Check the donation page. Now. Sarah refreshed the page and gasped. While she'd been writing, a new donation had come in. $5,000 from an anonymous donor with the comment, "For the man who helped my daughter find her smile again. Keep walking, Mr. Lewis. But soon, you won't have to." The total now read $20,427. Sarah's fingers flew across her phone's keyboard. OMG, who could it be? Madison's reply came quickly. No idea, but I heard Ms. Rodriguez crying in her classroom earlier. Something about her daughter and Mr. Lewis. Sarah smiled, remembering the Spanish teacher's daughter who had struggled with depression last year. Mr. Lewis had somehow known exactly when to appear with a broom and a willing ear, giving her small tasks that made her feel needed until she found her way back to herself. Looking at the new total, Sarah felt hope surge through her again. They were still short of their ultimate goal, but something told her they were on the right track. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new doubts, new obstacles to overcome. But tonight, somewhere in Millbrook, a former student's parent had remembered a kindness and paid it forward. Tomorrow, others would read Sarah's words and remember their own Mr. Lewis stories. The ripples would continue to spread, just like they had every time Mr. Lewis had dropped a small stone of kindness into the pond of their community. Sarah closed her laptop and finally headed to bed, her mind already racing with plans for tomorrow. As she drifted off to sleep, she smiled, thinking of Mr. Lewis making his long walk home, unaware that soon, very soon, his journey was about to change forever. In the quiet of her room, Sarah whispered a promise to herself and to the man who had inspired this entire movement. We're almost there, Mr. Lewis. Just keep walking a little longer. We're almost there. The morning sun cast long shadows across Millbrook High School's parking lot as Sarah Chun surveyed the scene before her. It was 6 a.m. on a Friday morning, and the usually empty lot was alive with activity. Students and parents scurried about, hanging banners between light poles and arranging clusters of blue and silver balloons, the school colors. The arch needs to be higher, Madison called out, directing a group of seniors struggling with an elaborate balloon structure. Remember, Mr. Lewis is tall. Sarah checked her phone for what felt like the 100th time that morning. The message from his neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, confirmed that Mr. Lewis had left for his walk right on schedule, completely unaware of what awaited him at the end of his journey. Channel 7 News is here, Tommy announced, running up to Sarah. And the Chronicle just pulled in. Where do you want them to set up? Sarah pointed to a designated area near the main entrance. Over there, but make sure they stay behind the yellow tape until after the reveal. We don't want their cameras blocking anyone's view. The parking lot had been transformed overnight. Banners stretched between every lamppost, bearing messages like, "Thank you, Mr. Lewis," and "Our hero walks no more." Student artwork covered every available surface. Posters depicting Mr. Lewis in a superhero cape, paintings of his smiling face, photo collages of him helping students throughout the years. In the center of it all, hidden behind a massive blue curtain rig between two poles, sat the real surprise. A brand new Honda CR-V, topped with an enormous red bow. The silver SUV gleamed in the early morning light, its presence a testament to thousands of small donations and one community's determination to make a difference. "Sarah," Josh called from near the curtain. "Principal Davidson wants to know if you've finished your speech." Sarah patted her pocket where the carefully folded papers sat, though she doubted she'd need them. The words she wanted to say had been building in her heart for weeks. As 7 a.m. approached, the parking lot filled with people. Teachers arrived early, many carrying boxes of tissues, already anticipating the emotional moment to come. Parents clustered in groups, some holding signs their children had made. Former students began showing up, having traveled from neighboring cities to be part of this moment. "Is that Jessica Porter?" Madison whispered, pointing to a young woman in a business suit. "She graduated like 5 years ago." "And there's Dr. Martinez," Sarah added, recognizing the local dentist who'd graduated from Millbrook in the 90s. "His daughter told me he canceled all his morning appointments to be here." The crowd continued to grow. Mrs. Rodriguez, the Spanish teacher, distributed small bells she'd bought for everyone to ring at the big moment. The school band, positioned discreetly behind a row of cars, warmed up their instruments. Even Max, Mr. Lewis's elderly golden retriever, had been brought to the event by Mrs. Henderson, wearing a special blue bandana for the occasion. At 7:15 a.m., Sarah's phone buzzed. The text from their lookout posted at the corner read, "He just turned on a school street. 5 minutes out. Places everyone." Sarah called out, her heart pounding. "Remember, absolute silence when you see him coming." The crowd shuffled into position, parents helping to arrange younger siblings on the curb for a better view. The news crews adjusted their cameras one final time. Principal Davidson moved to stand beside Sarah, giving her shoulder a supportive squeeze. And then they saw him. Mr. Lewis appeared at the far end of the parking lot, making his way slowly up the walk as he did every morning. Even from a distance, they could see his slight limp, the way he carried his lunch bag in one hand and his work clothes in the other. As he got closer, someone in the crowd stifled a sob. He was about halfway across the lot when he finally noticed something was different. His steps slowed, then stopped completely as he took in the scene before him. The decorated lot, the gathered crowd, the cameras. For a moment, he simply stood there, confusion evident on his face. Sarah stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly as she raised the microphone. "Good morning, Mr. Lewis," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent lot. "We hope you don't mind, but we've been paying attention to you these past few weeks. Actually, we've been paying attention for much longer than that. We just didn't realize it until recently." Mr. Lewis remained frozen in place, his eyes wide as he scanned the faces in the crowd. "You see," Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger, "we noticed how you help Tommy with his locker every morning, and how you always have spare change when someone forgets their lunch money. We noticed how you stay late for school events without being asked, and how you know everyone's name and story." She took a step closer to him. "But what we didn't notice, what we should have noticed, was your daily journey. For 0.2 miles to school, for 0.2 miles home, every day, through sun and rain and snow. We didn't notice your limp getting worse, or how you had to stop and rest but try to hide it from us. We didn't notice that while you were taking care of everyone else, no one was taking care of you. Tears were now streaming down Mr. Lewis's face, but he stood straight and tall, clutching his lunch bag like an anchor. "So we decided to do something about it," Sarah said, fighting to keep her own voice steady. "We started sharing stories about you, all the times you've helped us, supported us, shown us kindness when we needed it most. And you know what happened? The stories just kept coming. From current students, from graduates, from teachers and parents and community members. Hundreds of stories about hundreds of moments when you made a difference in someone's life." She gestured to the crowd. "Look around, Mr. Lewis. Every person here has a story about you. Every person here wanted to be part of this moment. Because today, we get to show you what you've shown us every day. That kindness matters, that every person matters, that sometimes the biggest heroes are the ones who quietly help others without expecting anything in return." Sarah paused, taking a deep breath. "Over the past month, more than 2,000 people donated to our cause. Children brought in their allowance. Teachers contributed from their salaries. Local businesses offered their support. Former students sent money from across the country, all because they wanted to thank you, to help you, to show you that your years of kindness haven't gone unnoticed." She turned toward the blue curtain. "Mr. Lewis, you've walked thousands of miles for us. Today, those miles end." At her signal, Josh and Tommy pulled the ropes, and the curtain dropped to reveal the gleaming new SUV. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. The small bells Mrs. Rodriguez had distributed creating a joyful chorus. The band struck up the school fight song. Max barked excitedly, his tail wagging furiously. Mr. Lewis staggered slightly, and Principal Davidson quickly moved to support him. His lunch bag dropped forgotten to the ground as he stared at the vehicle in disbelief. "It's yours," Sarah said softly, holding out the keys. "Fully paid for, including insurance for the first year. The dealership even threw in a lifetime of free oil changes after they heard your story." Mr. Lewis's hands shook as he took the keys, tears falling freely down his face. He turned in a slow circle, taking in the hundreds of smiling faces surrounding him. Former students waved from the crowd. Current students held up their handmade signs. Teachers dabbed at their eyes with tissues. Someone started a chant. "Speech, speech, speech." Mr. Lewis looked overwhelmed for a moment, but then Sarah saw something familiar in his eyes. That same strength that had carried him mile after mile, day after day. He took the microphone she offered, cleared his throat, and began to speak. His voice cracked, and he had to start again. "I don't know what to say. I'm not used to being the center of attention. Usually, I'm the one in the background, just trying to do my job, trying to help where I can." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "When I lost Claire, my wife, 5 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. Emily was about to start college, and I didn't know how I'd manage without Claire's teacher's salary. But this school, this community, you gave me purpose when I needed it most." Mr. Lewis looked down at the keys in his hand, then back at the crowd. "Every morning, I walked to school thinking about Claire. She loved this place so much. Loved teaching here, loved the students, loved our little community. And every morning, I try to honor her memory by continuing what she started, caring for this school and everyone in it." His voice grew stronger. "The walk, it's never been a burden. Yes, it's long, and yes, sometimes it hurts. But each step reminds me that I'm still here, still able to help, still able to make a difference in small ways. And now," he gestured to the SUV, shaking his head in amazement. "This is too much, far too much. But looking at all of you here today, I realize something important. You've given me more than just a car. You've shown me that every small act of kindness matters, that every person matters, that sometimes the help we give comes back to us in ways we never expected." Mr. Lewis turned to Sarah, his eyes filled with gratitude. "When did you notice, Sarah? When did you first see me walking?" 3 weeks ago, she admitted. "I saw you limping in the hallway, and I started paying attention, really paying attention." He nodded slowly. "You know what Claire used to say? She said that sometimes angels come disguised as observant teenagers with big hearts." He smiled through his tears. I think she was right. Looking back at the crowd, Mr. Lewis straightened his shoulders. I promise you this. I'll use this beautiful gift to help others. Maybe pick up some students who need a ride on rainy days. Maybe deliver supplies to families who can't afford them. Maybe just be there for someone who needs support, the way you've all been there for me today. His voice grew thick with emotion. Because that's what this community does. We notice each other. We help each other. We lift each other up. And if my daily walks have taught you anything, let it be this. Every journey is easier when we walk it together. The crowd erupted in applause again, and this time students broke ranks to surge forward, surrounding Mr. Lewis in a massive group hug. Max bounded forward, barking joyfully and weaving between legs to reach his master. The band played, bells rang, and camera flashes lit up the morning air. Sarah stood back, watching as Mr. Lewis was embraced by the community he had served so faithfully. She saw him greeting former students, hugging teachers, accepting congratulations from parents. His eyes shone with joy and gratitude, but also with something else, a quiet dignity that no amount of walking had ever diminished. Principal Davidson appeared at Sarah's side. You did good, Miss Chen. Really good. Sarah wiped her eyes, smiling as she watched Mr. Lewis being helped into the driver's seat of his new SUV. Max jumping expertly into the passenger side despite his age. We all did good. We just needed someone to notice first. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting its warm light over the celebration, Sarah thought about all the miles Mr. Lewis had walked. Each step had been a choice to keep going, to keep helping, to keep believing in the power of small kindnesses. Today, those miles had ended, but the journey they represented, the journey of compassion, of community, of quiet heroism, that journey would continue. And thanks to one observant student and thousands of grateful hearts, it would continue on 4 wheels instead of 2 tired feet. The Monday morning after the big reveal dawned bright and clear. Students arriving early at Millbrook High School noticed something different. Mr. Lewis's new SUV already parked in its designated spot, gleaming in the morning sun. The red bow had been carefully preserved and now sat in the back window, a reminder of that extraordinary Friday morning that had changed everything. Inside the school, Mr. Lewis moved through the halls with a new energy. The familiar limp was still there, but it was less pronounced, no longer weighed down by miles of walking. His smile, always ready, now seemed to carry an extra warmth. "Good morning, Mr. Lewis," called out Tommy Chun, hurrying to his locker. "How's the new ride?" "Like a dream, Tommy," Mr. Lewis replied, his eyes twinkling. "You know, I picked up 3 students on my way in today, saw them walking in the rain, and thought, well, now I can do something about that. It wasn't just the rides to school." Mr. Lewis began arriving early enough to help the drama club with their set construction. He stayed late to assist the robotics team in cleaning up their workshop. When the art club needed help hanging their exhibition, he was there with his tools and expertise, sharing stories about Claire's love for painting as he worked. "You don't have to do all this," Ms. Rodriguez told him one afternoon, watching him help organize props for the Spanish club's cultural fair. "You must be tired." Mr. Lewis smiled, carefully arranging colorful decorations. "That's the miracle of it, Maria. I'm not tired anymore. For the first time in months, I have energy to spare. Seems only right to spend it giving back to the community that gave me so much." The ripples of that one act of kindness spread throughout Millbrook. The local newspaper story about Mr. Lewis inspired other communities to look for their own unsung heroes. A neighboring town started a fund to help their elderly librarian repair her roof. Another community organized support for a struggling single mother who walked 3 miles to work at their grocery store. In Millbrook itself, people began paying more attention to each other. Students noticed things they might have overlooked before: a classmate without lunch money, a neighbor struggling with heavy groceries, a freshman eating alone in the cafeteria. Sarah watched it all unfold with a sense of wonder. Sitting in the journalism room one afternoon, she began typing her article for the school paper, "A Lesson in Kindness: How Mr. Lewis Taught Us More Than We Knew" by Sarah Chun. 3 weeks ago, our community came together to give Mr. Lewis, our beloved janitor, a gift, a new SUV to replace his daily 8-mile walk to and from school. We thought we were helping him. What we didn't realize was how much he would continue to teach us. Since that morning in the parking lot, something has changed at Millbrook High. It's not just that Mr. Lewis arrives looking refreshed instead of exhausted. It's not just that he can now offer rides to students on rainy days or help with after-school activities. It's something deeper, something that has touched every corner of our school and community. We've learned to notice, to really see each other, to recognize that everyone around us is fighting their own battles, walking their own long miles. Last week, I watched Jessica Martinez, a senior, stop to help a freshman pick up scattered papers in the hallway. When I mentioned how kind that was, she shrugged and said, "Mr. Lewis would have done it." That's become a common phrase around here. Mr. Lewis would have done it. Whether it's staying after school to tutor a struggling classmate, helping a teacher carry supplies to their car, or simply offering a smile to someone having a bad day, our standard for kindness has become clear. But perhaps the most important lesson Mr. Lewis taught us is this. Heroism doesn't always wear a cape. Sometimes it wears work boots and carries a mop. Sometimes it walks 8 miles a day without complaint. Sometimes it shows up early, stays late, and never stops looking for ways to help others. Mr. Lewis's daily walk may have ended, but his journey continues. And now, thanks to his example, we're all walking with him. As Sarah finished typing, she heard familiar footsteps in the hallway. Mr. Lewis appeared in the doorway, pushing his cleaning cart. "Working late again, Sarah?" he asked, his voice gentle. She nodded, gesturing to her laptop. "Just finishing an article about you, actually. About everything that's happened since, you know." He leaned against the doorframe, his eyes distant. "You know what Claire would say about all this? She'd say that kindness is like a boomerang. It always comes back to you, usually when you least expect it and most need it." Sarah saved her article and began gathering her things. "Need a ride home?" Mr. Lewis offered. "It's getting dark." "Thanks, but Madison's mom is picking me up." Sarah paused, then added, "I saw you giving the Wilson kids a ride this morning. Their mom posted about it on Facebook. Said it was such a relief knowing they didn't have to walk in the rain anymore." Mr. Lewis smiled, adjusting his name badge. "Just passing on the kindness, Sarah. That's all any of us can do." The weeks turned into months, and the changes in Millbrook High became permanent fixtures of school life. The student council started a random acts of kindness program, inspired by Mr. Lewis's example. Teachers noticed increased volunteering for community service projects. Even the cafeteria seemed different, fewer students eating alone, more mixing between social groups. One quiet evening, 6 months after the big reveal, Mr. Lewis sat in his SUV in the school parking lot after a long day. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded him of Claire's favorite sweater. He looked at the empty passenger seat, remembering all the time she'd sat there during their years together. "We did it, sweetheart," he whispered, running his hand along the pristine dashboard. "Can you believe it? All those miles we walked together in spirit. And now look." He started the engine, listening to its quiet purr. As he pulled out of the parking lot, he saw students still lingering on the front steps, the drama club finishing a late rehearsal. They waved enthusiastically, and he honked in response, the sound echoing across the quiet campus. 15 years later, Sarah Martinez straightened her teacher's badge and looked out over the Millbrook High School parking lot. It looked different now. New paint, updated landscaping, more spaces for the growing student population. But some things remained the same, like the spirit of kindness that had taken root here years ago. And that's where it happened, she told her homeroom class, pointing to the spot where a new SUV had once sat with a giant red bow. "Right there is where our community proved that when we notice each other's struggles and work together, we can make real change happen." Her students listened intently, some taking notes, others simply absorbing the story. They'd all seen the plaque by the school entrance, the one that read, "To the man who walked miles for us, and whose journey taught us the value of compassion." "What happened to Mr. Lewis?" asked one student, Emma, her hand raised high. Sarah smiled, remembering. "He retired 10 years ago, but his impact never left." The scholarship fund we started in his name has helped dozens of students afford college. The community outreach program he inspired is still going strong. And every year, when we tell new students his story, we remind them that kindness isn't just an action. It's a choice we make every day. She walked to the plaque, touching its smooth surface. Mr. Lewis taught us that sometimes the biggest changes start with simply noticing someone's struggle, noticing an opportunity to help, noticing the quiet heroes who walk among us. The morning bell rang, and students began filing into the building. Sarah watched them go, remembering her own days as a student here. The journalism room, where she'd first noticed Mr. Lewis's limp. The parking lot where their community had come together. The halls where kindness had transformed from an act into a legacy. A car horn honked, and Sarah looked up to see an elderly but still spry Mr. Lewis pulling into the lot in his second SUV. The community had insisted on replacing the first one when it finally wore out. He still volunteered at school events occasionally, his presence a living reminder of the lesson he'd taught them all. "Good morning, Mr. Lewis," her students called out, and he waved back, his smile as warm as ever. Sarah watched as he made his way into the building, no longer limping, but moving with the dignified pace of age. The morning sun caught the silver of his hair, and for a moment, she was transported back to that dawn 15 years ago when a community had come together to help one man and ended up helping themselves. The story of Mr. Lewis had become more than just a local legend. It had become a testament to the power of observation, compassion, and community. Schools across the country now used it as an example in their character education programs. The local university included it in their teaching curriculum as a case study in community organizing and social impact. But perhaps most importantly, it had changed the way people in Millbrook saw each other. They look more carefully now, notice more readily, help more quickly. The lesson Mr. Lewis had taught them, that everyone's journey matters, that kindness begets kindness, that community is built one small act at a time, had become part of the town's DNA. As Sarah headed to her classroom, she passed the school's wall of heroes, where Mr. Lewis's story was prominently displayed alongside other inspiring tales from the school's history. But his wasn't just a story of the past. It lived on in every student who offered help without being asked, in every teacher who stayed late to support a struggling student, in every community member who chose to notice and act. The morning announcements began, and Sarah heard her students shuffling papers and settling into their seats. Before beginning her lesson, she glanced out the window one last time, watching as the sun climbed higher over Millbrook High. Somewhere in the building, she knew someone was helping someone else, passing on the lesson Mr. Lewis had taught them all those years ago. And in that moment, Sarah understood that while the miles Mr. Lewis had walked were now just memory, the path he had shown them, the path of kindness, awareness, and community, stretched endlessly before them, waiting to be walked by each new generation that passed through these halls. The bell rang, and Sarah turned to her class, ready to teach not just the day's lesson, but the greater truth she had learned from a janitor who had walked miles to show them what really matters. The journey of kindness continues, one step at a time, one person at a time, one moment at a time. And somewhere, she knew, Claire was smiling. Mr. Lewis's life changed in a way he could never have imagined, all because the students he quietly supported every day decided to give back. This story isn't just about one man's dedication. It's about the impact that simple acts of kindness can have when a community comes together. What would you do if you found out someone you know was quietly facing such an enormous challenge? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, the smallest gesture of compassion can make the biggest difference. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more real-life tales that touch the soul